Walk into your kitchen right now, and imagine this. The power goes out, not for an hour, not for a night, but long enough that your fridge stops being useful, your freezer starts defrosting, and suddenly, most of the food you rely on every day becomes a problem instead of a solution. Milk goes first, fresh meat follows, anything frozen starts to soften, then spoil, and what's left, whatever you can eat, without cooking, without refrigeration, without relying on anything working. That's the difference most people don't prepare for. They store food, but not the kind that actually helps when things stop working. Because when the power goes out, it's not about having food, it's about having the right food. Let's start with something simple, but extremely powerful. Alright, let's talk about some of the most important foods you should have on hand if you ever find yourself in a survival situation. These are the foods that can really make a difference when it comes to energy, nutrition, and just getting through tough times. Peanut butter. This is one of the most efficient foods you can store. It's high in calories, packed with fats and protein, and honestly, it requires no preparation at all. No heating, no mixing. You just open it, and you eat, and that matters more than people think, because during a power outage, you really don't want to rely on anything that requires effort, tools, or extra steps. You want something immediate, and peanut butter delivers that. It also lasts a long time unopened, and even after opening it doesn't suddenly become unusable. It just sits there, ready when you need it. Next, canned fish, tuna, sardines, salmon. These are compact, high-protein foods that are already cooked, which means you don't need to do anything to them. No heat, no preparation, just open and eat. And here's what makes them even more valuable. They contain fats your body actually needs. So, you're not just eating to fill your stomach, you're actually sustaining energy. That's something dry foods alone don't always give you. Now let's take it one step further, because snacks are useful, but eventually you need something that really feels like a meal. Ready-to-eat canned meals, things like chili, stew, or beans. Most people assume these need to be heated, but actually they don't. They're already cooked. Heating just makes them more enjoyable. But in a real situation, you can eat them straight from the can, and that changes everything. Because now you're not just surviving on small bites, you're eating something filling, something that keeps you going longer. Now here's something that seems basic, but becomes extremely valuable. Dry crackers or hardtack, simple, light, long-lasting, and honestly, incredibly versatile. You can pair them with peanut butter, with canned fish, with anything really. They act as your base, your filler, the thing that stretches everything else further. And because they're dry, they don't spoil quickly. They just sit there, ready to be used when needed. Now, let's talk about something people underestimate. Honey. This is one of the few foods that doesn't expire, not in the usual sense. It can crystallize, and it can change texture, but it doesn't spoil, and that makes it extremely valuable, because it's not just food, it's instant energy. A spoon of honey gives you quick sugar your body can use immediately, and in situations where energy drops, that matters more than people realize. Next, nuts and trail mix. This is where density comes into play. You're getting a combination of fats, protein, and some carbohydrates in a small amount of food, which means you don't need to eat a lot to get energy, and that's important when you're trying to make food last. Trail mix is also easy to portion, easy to carry, and doesn't rely on anything external. You just grab and eat. Now, here's something that adds flexibility. Shelf-stable milk, either UHT cartons or powdered milk, because once fresh milk is gone, most people lose a big part of what they're used to. Drinks, breakfasts, basic meals. Shelf-stable milk fills that gap. It doesn't need refrigeration until opened, and powdered versions can last even longer when stored properly. It gives you options, and options are what most people run out of first. And finally, here's something that looks pretty simple, but honestly, it becomes extremely useful. Rolled oats. Most people think oats have to be cooked, but actually, they don't. You can just soak them, let them absorb some liquid, and eat them without any heat at all. It's not really about perfect taste here. It's about function. Oats are cheap, filling, and, easy to store in large quantities. They give you something consistent, something reliable. And during a power outage, that kind of thing matters way more than having a bunch of variety. Now step back for a second. Look at what we just covered. You've got high-calorie foods, protein sources, long-lasting carbohydrates, instant energy options, and full meals. That's not random, that's a system, because the biggest mistake people make one is thinking about food individually, instead of thinking about how everything works together. When the power goes out, you're not just eating, you're managing energy, managing portions, managing how long your food lasts, and that's where most people get it wrong. They rely on foods that need cooking, refrigeration, preparation, or constant replacement. And when those things disappear, so does their plan. But if you have these 8 foods, you're not reacting, you're ready. Because instead of asking, what can I eat, you already know. Now here's something worth thinking about. If your power went out tonight, how many of these do you actually have? Not planned, not in your head, but physically in your home. That gap between what you think you have and what you actually have is what catches people off guard. And closing that gap doesn't require anything complicated, just a few intentional choices, over time. Because once you start thinking this way, everything changes. You don't just shop for today, you shop with purpose. And that's what separates people who struggle from people who stay comfortable, even when things stop working.